Jesus Christ, God incarnate, the most famous person throughout our modern history. For nearly 2,000 years, he has always been depicted as white. However, recently, over the past few decades, this assertion has begun to be challenged, and there is an ongoing debate, if you will, over what he really and truly looked like. Well, is there any evidence, any historical proof, any clues throughout scripture? Let's go through it all one by one. Thanks everyone for 10,000 subscribers. Please do subscribe for future videos. When it comes to the appearance of Christ, who would be a better impartial witness than the man who personally met him and sentenced him to death? Pontius Pilate was a Roman pagan who saw Christ up close and personal. Valerius Paterculus, a Roman historian, met and interviewed Jesus, who reported it to Pilate, who in turn wrote a letter to the Roman emperor, which at the time was Tiberius Caesar. Amongst many things, he gave a description of Christ's appearance. In it, he describes him as follows: his golden coloured hair and beard gave to his appearance a celestial aspect. He appeared to be about 30 years of age. Never have I seen a sweeter or more serene countenance. What a contrast between him and his bearers, with their black beards and tawny complexions. So just by that account, he would sound like many modern Europeans. But let's examine all the other evidence. Are there any other depictions of Christ? We have another one from the Arco volume. In it we can read where Gamaliel was sent by the Sanhedrin to interrogate Joseph and Mary in regards to their child Jesus. It describes Christ as a picture of his mother, only he has not a smooth round face. His hair is a little more golden than hers, though it is much from sunburn as anything else. Who has golden hair and burns in the sun? His eyes are large and a soft blue and rather dull and heavy. This is all sounding very similar to Pilate's letter. Finally, we have another letter which is by Publius Lentulus, which could be translated as a dullard public official, so a Roman official who visited Judea at the time of Christ, and this letter was addressed to the Senate. In it, Christ's hair is described as the colour of chestnut, full ripe down to the ears, so again that would be a blondish colour. Furthermore, he says his face without spot or wrinkle, beautiful with a lovely red. So red cheeks, who do you see red cheeks on? His eyes, grey, clear and quick in reproving hypocrisy. So that's 3 different accounts, all giving a very similar depiction of Christ. However, let's see what the Bible actually says. When God created Adam, the first man, he created him in the image of himself, in the image of God. Since Christ is God, it would only make sense that whatever Adam looked like would give us an idea to Christ's appearance. Furthermore, why did God specifically name the first man Adam? The name Adam is derived from Strong's H119 Adam, meaning to show blood in the face, i.e. to flush or turn rosy. Blushing is a hot red flushing of the cheeks unique to white people when they feel humility, shame or embarrassment, and is often associated with the inability to hold the head up and bear another's gaze. Even Darwin described blushing as the most peculiar and most human of all expressions. So what is God telling us here? That Adam could show blood in the face, could blush, had rosy cheeks. In that case, what would Eve look like, who was from Adam, and what would all their descendants look like? Is it not obvious to what Christ would look like? Throughout the Bible, we see the Israelites commonly described as being ruddy in their appearance. The word ruddy, similar to Adam, means when a white person has a red color, suggesting good health, a rosy complexion, and is associated with blushing or showing blood in the face. In the book of Samuel, we read that when Samuel discovered a young David, he was described as ruddy, with a beautiful countenance and goodly to look at. In other words, he was healthy looking with bright red rosy cheeks. David is again described this way in his duel with Goliath, ruddy with a fair countenance, so that's twice. David's son Solomon in the Songs of Solomon is also described as white and ruddy. It does not get more clearer than that. Since Christ descended from both David and Solomon, would he not resemble them? Would he not also be white and ruddy? Another word often used is fair, which is an Old English adjective meaning to have pale skin or pale yellow golden hair. So fair means light, such as a light white skin complexion, white to rosy red skin, beautiful and pleasing to the eye. In Genesis we read that the sons of God, the angels, saw the daughters of men, Adamites, that they were fair, and they took them wives, all of which they chose. In the book of Job we read, and in all the land there were no women found so fair as the daughters of Job. And in Daniel we read that Daniel and his friends, at the end of 10 days their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh. In Acts we read, in which time Moses was born and was exceeding fair. And back to Songs of Solomon, thou art all fair, my love, there is no spot in thee. Is it not obvious, if all these Israelites were fair, then so was Christ, he must have been white with fair skin. So what was the earliest artwork of Christ and the apostles like? How were they depicted? Looking at the early pictures from churches, monasteries, caves and catacombs, it's clear that Christ was always known to be white. The earliest known images are around the 3rd and 4th century. Initially he had no beard with short hair, but later on the images began to add a thick beard and longer hair. Modern images often tend to follow this today. Early depictions you can also clearly see the apostles were white, just like Christ. There are numerous pictures of Paul and John, as well as Peter and his brother Andrew. There have been attempts to deliberately Photoshop or alter pictures to show a different narrative. So what did Christ look like? Is it not pretty clear from all the evidence? We must remember the apostles travelled to Europe exclusively, and there was never any doubt that they were white. The land around Judea and northern Africa was a white civilization. Only after the Arab conquest, 700 years later, did that permanently change forever. And this is how Christ and the apostles were white. But the people now living in those lands 2,000 years later are not. Thanks for watching, everyone. Praise Yahweh and hail Yeshua Christ.
The title. And it's going to be quite an interesting dissertation as we go into our subject matter today, because a lot of this is time to be just talked about and shown, and common sense will show you what is true and what isn't true. It also helps if you ask Yahweh, YHVH, okay? Some people pronounce it Yahuwah. Some people pronounce it Yahweh, Yahweh. YHVH, tetragrammation, Yahweh. I'm Dr. James P. Wickstrom, P.O. Box 308, Linwood, Michigan, 48634 in the U.S. of A. My blog site is my email is drjameswickstrom@gmail.com. Send me an email. The sites that you can go to watch the dissertation presentations in their fullness is Arcodius, ARCODEAUS on YouTube, or you can go to Arcodius Reloaded, 2 words, on YouTube, or you can go to Arcodius.com. And you can go to my blog site at www.jameswickstrom.com. It is Saturday, August 22, 2015. And before we start into our presentation, I want to remind everybody out there who's very conscious of who they are and who their Father is, the living God, YHVH, that the Feast of Tabernacles this year starts at sundown, October 8th, lasts until sundown, October 16th, and we will be celebrating it here in Michigan on the weekend of the 10th and the 11th. So you can either write me or you can send me an email if you want more information about when, how, where, and why. All right? Now, a lot of people have this wondering, and they have movies that they go see from Hollyweird, the Jewry, Edom, Esau, Hollyweird, people called Jews who control Hollywood. The movies of Christ. And they always have some swarthy, black-haired, tainted, hook-nosed, Turco-Mongolian actor acting in the place of the Christ. There is never a true individual who acts the part on a racial plane of who he is and who he was at that time. We're going to go in there today, and we're going to talk with some common sense. We're going to view an article of history about him, all right? And then we're going to have a picture of him on an artist's view. That was, the artist, of course, was Italian. The description of him, and he drew the portrait, and we'll be putting that picture up, all right? So, number one that I would like to get into on this subject matter is a letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar. And this is a reprinting of a letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar describing the physical appearance of Christ. Copies are in the Congressional Library in Washington, D.C. And this is the content of the letter from Pilate to Caesar in Rome. To Tiberius Caesar. A young man appeared in Galilee, preaching with humble unction. A new law. A new law. Not a new religion, a new law, in the name of the God that has sent him. Remember, the Father always spoke in parables. He spoke in parables. All right? At first I was apprehensive that his design was to stir up the people against the Romans, but my fears were soon dispelled. Jesus of Nazareth spoke rather as a friend of the Romans, rather than a friend of the Jews. Please. One day I observed in the midst of a group of people a young man who was leaning against a tree, calmly addressing the multitude. I was told it was Christ. This I could easily have suspected, so great was the difference between him and those who were listening to him. His golden-colored hair and beard gave to his appearance of a celestial aspect. He appeared to be about 30 years of age. Never have I seen a sweeter or more serene countenance. Now remember, this information here is in the Library of Congress of the United States. Also in the National Library of Rome. What a contrast between you in detail concerning these matters. I say that such a man who could convert water into wine, change death into life, disease into health, calm the stormy seas, is not guilty of any criminal offense, and as others have said, we must agree, truly they said this is the Son of God. Now it was written that they would call him the Son of God. It is written in here that he would be called the Son of God, but he would be YHVH, the Almighty Father, Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yahweh, Yahweh, in a flesh body, witnessed twice by the prophet Isaiah that a virgin will bear him, and he was in a cave outside of Bethlehem, all right, in and coming from Galilee. Why is it so important he was from Galilee? Because the Galileans were totally different racially than most at that time of the mongrelized Jerusalem. And how did they know he was from Galilee, and how did they know who the Galileans were? Because the Galileans dressed in their attire as the true ancient Hebrews, not as those of the Edom Eastside Sanhedrin. Now this is very important. This is an official document in the Library of Congress of the U.S. and in the Roman Museum of History. Let's continue here. Your most obedient servant, Pontius Pilate. Okay, and then we go into, well, what did he look like? Here comes your second witness. Few people are aware there is in existence today in the archives in Rome a a physical description of Yahweh, of the Christ. It is contained in a report written some 2,000 years ago by a Roman, Publius Lentulus, to his emperor Tiberius, and it reads like this: there has appeared in Palestine a man who is still living and whose power is extraordinary. He has the title given to him of Great Prophet. His disciples call him the Son of God. He is a tall, well-proportioned man, and there is an air of serenity in his countenance, which at once attracts the love and reverence of those who see him. His hair is the color of new wine, from the roots to the ears, and thence to the shoulders it is curled and falls down to the lowest part of them. And upon the forehead it parts in two after the manner of the Nazarenes. His forehead is flat and fair, his face without blemish or defect, adorned with a graceful expression. His nose and mouth are well proportioned. His beard is thick, and the color of his hair. His eyes are extremely lively. And in reproofs, when he goes after someone, he is terrible. But in his exhortations and instructions, amenable and courteous. There is something wonderfully charming in his face, with a mixture of gravity. Though merry and joking, he is never seen to laugh, but he has been observed to weep. He is very straight in stature. His large hands are large and spreading and extremely well kept, and his arms are very beautiful. He talks little but with great quality, and is the handsomest man in the world, unquote. And what does he really look like? This is a picture of what people say is Yahweh, Yahuwah, YHVH, Yahweh, the Father who came when he was born from a virgin in a cave outside Bethlehem. I have given you a double witness here to his description, to his hair, to his looks, to his entire description. An artist, a very qualified artist in Italy, took those descriptions and, like a forensic expert, he painted this picture from the description of which I have just given you. And this is YHVH. This is the living God, the picture that he came up with. The clear blue eyes, well-proportioned face, high forehead, mouth, lips, hair, golden, beard golden. And you would say, if you were to look at this individual today, you would say, there is a pure white European man.